The fluorescent lights in the ambulance flickered above me as consciousness slowly returned my head, throbbing like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my skull. Paramedic Sarah was staring at something on her tablet, her face pale as she studied the preliminary scan results from the portable MRI unit. She grabbed her radio with trembling fingers and called ahead to Detroit Medical Center. "We need a police escort waiting at the hospital," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "And someone needs to call a lawyer." My family stood outside the ambulance, looking confused and annoyed. My dad Robert still insisting I was being dramatic. My mom Linda shaking her head in disgust. My brother Jake smirking, like this was all some elaborate joke he'd orchestrated for his entertainment. 3 hours earlier, I had been looking forward to what should have been a perfect Memorial Day weekend at our family's lake house in northern Michigan. I'm Hector, 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Detroit. This weekend was supposed to be special because I had plans to propose to my girlfriend Carmen during our annual family gathering. The engagement ring was hidden in my luggage upstairs, and I had choreographed the perfect lakeside proposal for Sunday evening. Our family had been coming to this same lake house for over 15 years. My parents, Robert and Linda, bought the property when my younger brother Jake and I were still in college. The rustic cabin sat on 3 acres of pine forest, overlooking Lake Charlevoix, with a private dock and sandy beach that had hosted countless family memories. This year, the guest list included my parents Jake, who was 28, and currently unemployed, his wife Amanda, their 6-year-old twin daughters Emma and Grace, plus Carmen and myself. Jake had moved back in with our parents 6 months ago, after losing yet another job, this time as a sales associate at a sporting goods store. He claimed his manager had it out for him, but I suspected his attitude and work ethic were the real problems. Living at home at 28 had clearly bruised his ego, especially since I had a successful career and was planning to propose to Carmen. Throughout our childhood, Jake had always been the family comedian, pulling pranks and making everyone laugh. But as we got older, his jokes became meaner, more targeted, and increasingly dangerous. The tension started building the moment we arrived Friday evening. Jake made snide comments about my BMW, asking if I was showing off for the family. When Carmen complimented the lake house renovations, Jake sarcastically mentioned how nice it must be to have a successful big brother to look up to. I tried to brush off his negativity, focusing instead on quality time with Emma and Grace, who always brightened my mood with their infectious giggling and boundless energy. Saturday morning brought beautiful weather, and we spent the day swimming, fishing, and preparing for the traditional Memorial Day barbecue. Jake's mood seemed to improve as he entertained the twins with silly games and stories. Amanda appeared relieved to see him interacting positively with their daughters, instead of sulking about his unemployment. Carmen and I helped my parents prepare hamburgers, hot dogs, and corn on the cob for dinner, while Jake manned the grill and actually seemed to be enjoying himself. The incident happened around 6:30 in the evening. Carmen and I had been down at the dock watching the sunset, and she mentioned feeling tired from the long day in the sun. I offered to carry her overnight bag upstairs to the guest bedroom so she could rest before dinner. The bag wasn't particularly heavy, but it contained her camera equipment since she worked as a freelance photographer. I was halfway up the wooden staircase that led from the main living area to the second-floor bedrooms when Jake appeared behind me. "Hey, Hector, think fast," he called out with a laugh in his voice. I turned to see what he wanted, and that's when he shoved me hard between my shoulder blades with both hands. The force was much stronger than I expected, and with Carmen's camera bag in my hands, I couldn't grab the railing to steady myself. I tumbled forward, my feet tangling as I tried to regain balance. And then, I was falling down 15 wooden steps. My head struck each step on the way down, before finally slamming into the concrete basement floor at the bottom of the staircase. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. My vision blurred and I felt nausea rising in my stomach as I curled up on the cold concrete, clutching my head. Emma and Grace started crying, frightened by the loud crash, and seeing me motionless on the floor. Carmen rushed over, kneeling beside me and asking if I was okay, her voice filled with panic and concern. "Walk it off. You're fine," my dad growled from the top of the stairs, his tone dismissive and annoyed. He descended slowly, shaking his head, like I was causing unnecessary drama. It wasn't that bad of a fall. Jake was already spinning his narrative, explaining to everyone within earshot that it was just a harmless prank gone slightly wrong. "He does this for sympathy," Jake announced loud enough for the whole family to hear. "Remember when we were kids, and he'd fake being hurt to get out of chores?" My mom, Linda, appeared at the top of the staircase, sighing heavily as she surveyed the scene below. "He'll do anything to ruin a peaceful weekend," she declared, her voice dripping with frustration. "We finally get everyone together for a nice family holiday, and he has to create drama." But the pain in my head was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Sharp stabbing sensations shot through my skull, and I couldn't focus my eyes properly. When I tried to stand up, dizziness overwhelmed me, and I immediately sat back down on the concrete floor. Carmen noticed that my pupils looked different sizes, and she insisted something was seriously wrong. "We need to call an ambulance," Carmen said firmly, pulling out her phone. "Absolutely not," Robert replied, his voice stern and final. "He's fine, just embarrassed and trying to make Jake look like the bad guy." Linda nodded in agreement, crossing her arms and giving me a look that suggested I was deliberately manipulating the situation. "If we call paramedics for every little bump and bruise, they'll stop taking real emergencies seriously." Jake pulled out his phone and started recording video, capturing my confused state and disorientation while providing commentary about how I was totally overreacting to a gentle nudge. He narrated the scene like a sports broadcaster, describing my dramatic performance and Oscar-worthy pain acting for his camera. The twins watched in confusion as their father documented my genuine suffering for what I would later learn was his online entertainment channel. Amanda tried to convince Jake to put the phone away, but he brushed off her concerns, saying he was just capturing a funny family moment to share later. Carmen grew increasingly frustrated with my family's dismissive attitude, especially as she watched me struggle with symptoms that clearly indicated a serious head injury. That's when I discovered something that changed everything. As I sat on the basement floor, trying to collect myself while my family dismissed my pain, I noticed Jake's phone screen showing a live stream interface. He wasn't just recording for personal memories. He was broadcasting this incident live to an online audience. The viewer count showed over 2,000 people watching in real time, with comments flooding the chat about how entertaining my accident looked. "Jake, are you streaming this?" I asked weakly, my voice slurred and confused. He quickly closed the app and claimed he was just taking a normal video, but I had clearly seen the live streaming interface. Carmen caught a glimpse of his phone screen too, and her expression shifted from concern to anger as she realized Jake had been monetizing my humiliation for online entertainment. Carmen quietly stepped outside and called 911, despite my family's protests and threats that she was overreacting to a simple accident. She described my symptoms to the emergency dispatcher: severe headache, dizziness, nausea, dilated pupils, confusion, and difficulty maintaining balance. The dispatcher immediately sent an ambulance, explaining that head injuries could be life-threatening, even when they initially appeared minor. Paramedic Sarah arrived 25 minutes later with her partner Marcus, both equipped with advanced medical equipment, including a portable MRI scanner that could detect brain injuries in the field. Sarah was a veteran paramedic with 15 years of experience, and she immediately recognized the signs of serious head trauma that my family had dismissed as attention-seeking behavior. "How long has he been disoriented?" Sarah asked Carmen while examining my pupils with a small flashlight. "About 45 minutes now," Carmen replied. "His family keeps saying he's faking it, but I know him well enough to recognize when something's seriously wrong." Sarah performed a series of neurological tests, checking my reflexes, coordination, and cognitive responses. When she asked me to count backwards from 100 by sevens, I could barely reach 93 before losing track completely. My balance was so poor that I couldn't stand without swaying dangerously, and I kept forgetting details about the incident that had just happened. "We need to transport him immediately," Sarah told Marcus after completing her assessment. "This presentation is consistent with significant traumatic brain injury." My parents continued protesting, insisting that I was fine, and that Carmen had manipulated the paramedics into believing a simple fall required emergency medical attention. Jake filmed their arguments with the paramedics, narrating how this was all an elaborate scheme to make him look bad for playing a harmless prank. During the ambulance ride to Detroit Medical Center, I drifted in and out of consciousness, while Sarah monitored my vital signs and ran preliminary scans with the portable MRI unit. As the ambulance swayed through traffic, fragmented memories began surfacing of other incidents with Jake over the years. I remembered falling off my bicycle when I was 12, after Jake had loosened the front wheel bolts. There was the time I, accidentally, got elbowed in the face during a backyard football game, giving me a black eye that lasted 2 weeks. I recalled being pushed into the deep end of our neighbor's pool when I was 16, even though Jake knew I had been fighting an ear infection that made swimming painful. At the time, I had accepted these incidents as normal sibling rivalry, or unfortunate accidents. Our parents always sided with Jake, explaining that boys roughhouse, and occasionally someone gets hurt. They taught me that complaining about Jake's behavior was tattling, and that real men handled conflicts without running to authority figures for help. But lying in that ambulance with my head pounding and vision blurred, I began wondering if there had been a pattern I'd never recognized before. The accidents always seemed to happen when Jake was frustrated about something in his life, and they were always dismissed by our parents as normal family dynamics. Sarah noticed my deteriorating condition and increased our speed toward the hospital. She radioed ahead to Dr. Patricia Hoffman, the head of emergency neurology, explaining my symptoms and requesting immediate imaging studies upon arrival. The portable MRI had detected abnormalities that required more sophisticated analysis with the hospital's advanced equipment. We arrived at Detroit Medical Center's emergency department 42 minutes after leaving the lake house. Dr. Hoffman was waiting with a team of specialists who immediately transferred me to the neuroimaging suite for comprehensive scans. Carmen rode in a separate vehicle with my family, who spent the entire drive complaining about the unnecessary medical bills and disrupted holiday weekend. Dr. Hoffman was a highly respected neurologist with 23 years of experience treating traumatic brain injuries. She ordered a full battery of tests, including CT scans, MRI imaging, and neuropsychological assessments to determine the extent of damage from my fall. The preliminary results from the portable scanner had raised serious concerns that required immediate investigation. 45 minutes later, Dr. Hoffman called Carmen and my family into a private consultation room. Her expression was grave as she displayed the imaging results on a large monitor, pointing to areas of concern throughout my brain tissue. "The current injury is severe," Dr. Hoffman began, "but what's more troubling is the evidence of multiple previous head traumas. These scans show scarring and damage patterns consistent with repeated traumatic brain injuries sustained over many years." My parents looked confused, insisting that I had never suffered any serious head injuries in the past. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair, claiming that Dr. Hoffman must be misinterpreting normal variations in brain tissue. "This pattern of scarring doesn't occur from natural causes." Dr. Hoffman continued, her voice becoming more serious. "The damage is consistent with systematic abuse involving repeated blunt force trauma to the head and neck area." Carmen's hand flew to her mouth as she realized the implications of what Dr. Hoffman was describing. The accidents throughout my childhood hadn't been accidents at all, but rather a pattern of systematic violence that had been causing cumulative brain damage for decades. Dr. Hoffman explained that the scarring indicated at least 12 to 15 separate incidents of significant head trauma, dating back to my early teenage years. The damage had affected areas of my brain responsible for memory formation, concentration, and emotional regulation, which explained difficulties I'd been experiencing in my career and personal relationships. We need to involve social services and law enforcement." Dr. Hoffman announced, reaching for her phone. This case represents ongoing domestic violence with clear medical evidence of systematic abuse. That's when Dr. Hoffman called hospital social worker Diana Martinez and contacted Detective Raymond Torres from the Domestic Violence Unit. The medical evidence was too compelling to ignore, and the pattern of brain damage told a story that my family's dismissive explanations couldn't account for. As I lay in the hospital bed, still groggy from pain medication, and struggling to process what Dr. Hoffman had revealed, I began connecting dots that I should have seen years earlier. The chronic headaches I attributed to work, stressed the concentration problems that had hurt my career advancement, the memory issues that made me feel constantly forgetful and disorganized. These weren't personal failings or character flaws, but symptoms of traumatic brain injury caused by my brother's systematic violence. Carmen sat beside my bed, holding my hand, tears streaming down her face, as she realized that the man she loved had been suffering from undiagnosed brain damage for most of his adult life. She began sharing observations about my behavior that suddenly made sense in this new context. How I sometimes became confused during simple tasks, my struggles with decision-making under pressure, and my tendency to doubt my own perceptions and memories. Detective Raymond Torres arrived at the hospital within 2 hours of Dr. Hoffman's call, accompanied by his partner, Detective Lisa Chang, who specialized in domestic violence cases involving family members. Torres had 28 years of experience investigating assault cases, and he immediately recognized the medical evidence as indicative of long-term systematic abuse, disguised as family dysfunction. Torres began interviewing family members separately, starting with Jake, whose story changed dramatically with each telling. Initially, Jake claimed complete innocence, insisting that I had tripped and fallen down the stairs entirely on my own. When Torres pointed out that multiple witnesses had seen him push me, Jake admitted to lightly touching my shoulder as a friendly gesture. Finally, when confronted with Carmen's testimony about the force of his shove, Jake acknowledged pushing me, but claimed it was just playful brotherly interaction that I had overreacted to for attention. "Your brother has traumatic brain injury consistent with multiple assaults over many years," Torres explained to Jake during the interview. "This isn't about one incident. We're looking at a pattern of systematic violence." Jake's demeanor shifted as he realized the seriousness of the investigation. He began expressing deep resentment toward me, complaining that I had always been the golden child who received preferential treatment from our parents. He mentioned my successful career, stable relationship with Carmen, and financial independence as sources of frustration that had been building for years. Amanda's interview revealed disturbing details about Jake's behavior at home. She reluctantly admitted that Jake had shown her videos on his phone of me getting hurt during family gatherings, bragging about his comedic timing and perfect setups for capturing my accidents on camera. Amanda had assumed these were legitimate accidents that Jake happened to film, but Torres's questions made her reconsider whether Jake might have been orchestrating these incidents deliberately. Emma and Grace, the 6-year-old twins, provided innocent but damning testimony during their child-friendly interview with social worker Diana Martinez. They described Uncle Jake's secret movies, where Uncle Hector always falls down and looks sad. The twins explained how Jake would set up his phone to record before certain family activities, positioning the camera to capture what they assumed were accidental mishaps, but were actually planned attacks. Carmen's interview with Detective Chang provided crucial evidence that elevated the case from simple assault to systematic abuse with financial motivation. Carmen revealed that she had been documenting Jake's increasingly aggressive behavior toward me over the past 2 years initially, to help me recognize patterns I wasn't seeing due to my brain injury symptoms. She showed Chang screenshots of Jake's YouTube channel called Clumsy Bro Chronicles, which had accumulated over 500,000 subscribers who enjoyed watching videos of me getting hurt during family events. The channel description promised authentic family comedy, featuring my hilariously bad luck during holidays and gatherings. Each video was monetized with advertising revenue and Carmen had calculated that Jake was earning substantial income from my humiliation. Chang examined the YouTube videos with growing horror, recognizing that what appeared to be accidental comedy to viewers was actually documented evidence of systematic assault. The comment section revealed viewers requesting more violent content, with some offering to pay premium fees for extreme family pranks that resulted in more serious injuries. But the most shocking discovery came when Dr. Hoffman received the complete toxicology results from my blood and urine samples. The tests revealed traces of benzodiazepines and antihistamines that I had not taken voluntarily. These substances caused dizziness, confusion, and loss of coordination, explaining why I had appeared genuinely clumsy and accident-prone during family gatherings. "Someone has been drugging him," Dr. Hoffman explained to Detective Torres. These medications would cause exactly the symptoms that made him vulnerable to falls and accidents. Torres immediately questioned Jake about access to these medications, discovering that Jake had been prescribed anxiety medication following his job loss and had easy access to over-the-counter antihistamines. Amanda confirmed that Jake always insisted on making coffee for everyone during family visits, and she had noticed him spending unusual amounts of time in the kitchen alone during these occasions. The investigation revealed that Jake had been systematically drugging my coffee during family visits, making me genuinely unsteady and confused before orchestrating accidents that he could film for his online audience. This explained why my clumsiness only occurred around family members, while I remained coordinated and athletic in other settings. My coworkers and friends had never witnessed the accidents and confusion that characterized my behavior during family gatherings. Jake's financial records, subpoenaed by Detective Torres, showed that he had earned over $43,000 in the previous year from YouTube advertising revenue, Patreon subscriptions, and merchandise sales featuring my image and accidents. His unemployment was voluntary because his online content had become more profitable than traditional employment. Robert and Linda faced the devastating realization that they had enabled systematic abuse by consistently taking Jake's side and dismissing my genuine injuries as attention-seeking behavior. Their defensive stance began crumbling as evidence mounted against Jake, and they recognized their own culpability in ignoring obvious signs of domestic violence. Chang discovered that Jake's online following included a disturbing community of people who paid premium subscriptions to watch what they believed was real family violence. Jake had been selling increasingly dangerous content to satisfy viewer demands for more extreme pranks, escalating his attacks to generate higher revenue from his subscriber base. The investigation expanded beyond simple assault charges, as Torres uncovered evidence of fraud, exploitation, and organized harassment involving Jake's online community. Several viewers had sent Jake money specifically requesting more violent content, making them potential accomplices to systematic abuse. Attorney Lisa Rodriguez learned about my case through local news coverage and contacted Carmen directly, offering to represent me pro bono because of the groundbreaking nature of digital-age domestic violence. Rodriguez had built her career on assault cases involving family members, but Jake's case represented a new category of abuse where technology enabled and financially motivated systematic violence. Rodriguez immediately subpoenaed all social media platforms where Jake had accounts, uncovering an extensive digital footprint that extended far beyond YouTube. Jake maintained premium Patreon subscriptions, offering exclusive violent content, private Discord servers where subscribers could request specific types of accidents, and dark web accounts selling unedited footage of my injuries to people willing to pay premium prices for authentic violence. The financial investigation revealed that Jake's total annual income from my abuse exceeded $200,000 when including all revenue streams. His elaborate online empire included merchandise, featuring my image subscription services offering behind-the-scenes content of my injuries, and commissioned videos where viewers paid for specific types of accidents they wanted to see Jake orchestrate. Rodriguez contacted other families whose stories had emerged following news coverage of Jake's case, discovering that social media platforms hosted entire communities dedicated to family violence disguised as entertainment content. Her investigation led to identifying dozens of other content creators who were systematically abusing relatives for online profit. Meanwhile, I underwent comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation with Dr. Michael Stevens, a specialist in traumatic brain injury assessment. The testing revealed significant cognitive damage affecting memory formation, concentration, executive function, and emotional regulation. Dr. Stevens explained that cumulative brain injuries had directly impacted my software engineering career, making complex programming tasks more difficult and affecting my ability to work under pressure. The damage is consistent with someone who has sustained multiple concussions over many years. Dr. Stevens explained to Rodriguez. His symptoms weren't personal failings, but neurological consequences of systematic head trauma. Carmen supported me through this devastating period of self-discovery, helping me understand that struggles I had attributed to personal weakness were actually results of brain injury caused by Jake's violence. She helped me recognize that my difficulties with memory decision-making and emotional regulation weren't character flaws, but medical conditions resulting from systematic abuse. The neuropsychological evaluation also revealed that the brain damage had affected my ability to recognize patterns and trust my own perceptions, which explained why I had never connected Jake's pranks to my subsequent health problems. The injuries had literally impaired my capacity to understand that I was being systematically abused. Robert and Linda faced criminal charges for neglect and enabling domestic violence after investigators discovered evidence that they had been aware of Jake's behavior, but chose to protect their younger son, rather than acknowledge the abuse. Text messages between my parents revealed discussions about Jake's pranks getting too rough, but decisions to avoid confronting him because they feared damaging his self-esteem during his unemployment. Their marriage began crumbling under the weight of guilt and denial as they faced the reality that their favoritism toward Jake had enabled years of systematic violence against me. Linda struggled particularly with accepting responsibility, continuing to minimize Jake's actions, and blame me for provoking his aggression by being successful and independent. Amanda filed for divorce and sought full custody of Emma and Grace after discovering the full extent of Jake's violence and her unwitting participation in documenting my abuse. She was horrified to learn that family videos she had assumed captured accidental comedy were actually evidence of premeditated assault, and that her daughters had been exposed to domestic violence throughout their childhood. The community response was overwhelming, as local news stations covered the case and highlighted the issue of family violence disguised as social media entertainment. Other families came forward with similar experiences of sibling abuse that had been dismissed as normal family dynamics by parents and relatives who failed to recognize systematic violence. Rodriguez's case attracted national attention as legal experts recognized its potential to establish precedent for digital-age domestic violence prosecutions. The combination of systematic abuse, financial motivation, and online exploitation created a new category of criminal behavior that existing laws had not specifically addressed. Social media companies faced pressure to examine their content policies and revenue-sharing arrangements after Rodriguez demonstrated how their platforms had financially rewarded systematic family violence. YouTube, Patreon, and other services began implementing new policies designed to identify and remove content featuring non-consensual family violence. Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh took personal interest in Jake's case because of its potential to influence how courts handle technology-enabled domestic violence. Walsh had prosecuted domestic violence cases for 12 years, but Jake's systematic abuse represented a new evolution of family violence that required innovative legal approaches. The media attention brought support from domestic violence advocates who recognized that my case highlighted how traditional concepts of family abuse needed updating to address modern technology and social media exploitation. Organizations dedicated to supporting abuse survivors reached out offering resources and assistance during the legal proceedings. Jake's trial began 8 months after the initial incident, attracting national media attention as legal experts recognized its significance for establishing precedents in digital-age domestic violence cases. Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh assembled overwhelming evidence, including video documentation, spanning 3 years' comprehensive medical records, showing progressive brain damage, toxicology reports, proving systematic drugging, and financial records demonstrating substantial profit from my abuse. The prosecution's case methodically established the pattern of systematic violence, beginning with expert testimony from Dr. Patricia Hoffman about the medical evidence of repeated traumatic brain injuries. Dr. Hoffman explained to the jury how brain scans revealed damage consistent with 12 to 15 separate incidents of significant head trauma, creating cumulative injuries that had affected my cognitive function, memory, and emotional regulation. Dr. Michael Stevens testified about the neuropsychological impact of cumulative brain injuries, explaining how systematic head trauma had impaired my ability to recognize patterns or trust my own perceptions. His testimony helped the jury understand why I had never identified Jake's pranks as deliberate abuse, and how brain damage had made me vulnerable to continued victimization. Carmen's testimony provided powerful documentation of Jake's escalating violence and the systematic nature of his attacks. She presented photographs, videos, and detailed notes she had compiled while trying to help me understand patterns I couldn't recognize due to my brain injury symptoms. Her evidence showed how Jake's pranks had become increasingly dangerous over time, as his online audience demanded more extreme content. The most damaging evidence came from Jake's own online content, which Prosecutor Walsh played for the jury in chronological order to demonstrate the evolution from simple pranks to systematic assault. The videos showed clear evidence of premeditation with Jake, positioning cameras to capture optimal angles of my injuries, and providing commentary that revealed his awareness that he was causing genuine harm. Walsh introduced testimony from computer forensics experts who had analyzed Jake's deleted files and private communications, revealing discussions with online subscribers about specific types of injuries they wanted to see him inflict. The evidence showed that Jake had been taking requests for particular accidents and charging premium fees for content featuring more severe injuries. Financial expert Monica Chen testified about Jake's elaborate revenue streams, explaining how he had monetized my abuse through multiple platforms to generate substantial annual income. Chen's analysis revealed that Jake's most profitable content featured the most severe injuries, creating financial incentive for escalating violence. The defense attorney David Morrison attempted to minimize the abuse as sibling rivalry gone wrong, and portrayed Jake as an immature young man who had let online fame go to his head. Morrison argued that Jake never intended to cause serious harm, and that my brain injuries were pre-existing conditions from childhood accidents, unrelated to Jake's pranks. But Morrison's strategy collapsed when Robert took the witness stand and delivered testimony that shocked everyone in the courtroom. Under cross-examination, Robert broke down completely and revealed that he himself had suffered identical abuse from his older brother Stephen throughout their childhood in the 1970s and 80s. "My brother used to do the same things to me." Robert sobbed, his composure completely shattered. "He would push me downstairs, make me look clumsy in front of our parents. I thought it was normal. I thought that's just what brothers do to each other." Robert's testimony revealed generational cycles of abuse that had been passed down through family systems that normalized violence between siblings. He explained that his parents had dismissed Stephen's violence as boys being boys, leaving Robert with lasting trauma and an unconscious belief that such treatment was acceptable family behavior. "I failed to protect Hector because I genuinely believed this was normal." Robert continued, tears streaming down his face. "When Jake hurt Hector, it looked like the same thing Stephen did to me, and our parents said it was just normal sibling interaction." Linda's testimony was equally devastating, as she admitted to willful denial and conscious choices to protect Jake rather than acknowledge the abuse. Under oath, Linda revealed that she had witnessed Jake drugging my coffee on multiple occasions, but convinced herself he was just adding sugar or being helpful. "I knew something was wrong." Linda admitted reluctantly. But acknowledging that Jake was hurting Hector would mean admitting I had failed as a mother. It was easier to believe Hector was exaggerating. The prosecution introduced expert testimony about family systems and generational trauma, helping the jury understand how cycles of abuse perpetuate when parents fail to recognize or address violence between siblings. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a family trauma specialist, explained how children who experience sibling abuse often develop distorted perceptions of normal family relationships. Amanda's testimony provided insight into Jake's mindset and the financial pressures that had motivated his escalating violence. She revealed conversations where Jake had expressed jealousy about my career success and resentment about living with our parents as an unemployed adult. Amanda described how Jake's online income had become addictive, leading him to take increasingly dangerous risks to satisfy his audience's demands for extreme content. He started seeing Hector as a product rather than a person, Amanda explained. The money changed everything. Jake would talk about needing to deliver content and give the audience what they want, like Hector was just a prop in his show. The twins, Emma and Grace, provided child-friendly testimony through recorded interviews with social services, describing their confusion about Uncle Jake's movies and their distress when they realized Uncle Hector was being hurt on purpose. Their innocent observations provided powerful evidence of the psychological impact on children who witnessed systematic family violence. Expert witnesses explained how systematic brain injury affects victims' ability to recognize abuse, creating cycles where victims appear complicit in their own mistreatment because neurological damage impairs their perception and decision-making abilities. This testimony helped the jury understand why I had never sought help or recognized the pattern of systematic violence. My own testimony was the emotional climax of the trial, as I described years of confusion, self-doubt, and wondering why I was so clumsy only around my family. I explained how brain injury symptoms had affected my career, relationships, and self-esteem, making me feel defective and incompetent, without understanding the medical causes of my struggles. I thought I was just naturally clumsy and forgetful, I testified. I never connected my problems to Jake's pranks because the brain damage made it impossible for me to see the pattern. I blamed myself for everything. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges: aggravated assault, domestic violence fraud, exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and conspiracy to commit assault. The evidence was so overwhelming that even Jake's defense attorney later admitted the case was unwinnable given the medical evidence and financial records. Judge Patricia Williams sentenced Jake to 8 years in prison, plus restitution, covering all medical expenses, lost wages, and ongoing treatment costs. The sentence also included permanent restraining orders, protecting me from any future contact with Jake upon his release. Following the trial, I began intensive therapy with Dr. Michael Stevens, who specialized in trauma recovery and family system dysfunction. Dr. Stevens helped me process years of gaslighting and systematic abuse, teaching me to trust my own perceptions and memories, despite the neurological damage that had impaired my ability to recognize patterns. The therapy process revealed how profoundly the brain injuries had affected my sense of self and personal relationships. I had spent years believing I was naturally clumsy, forgetful, and emotionally unstable, never realizing these were symptoms of traumatic brain injury rather than personal character flaws. Carmen became my anchor throughout the healing process, demonstrating what healthy love and support looked like compared to my family's dysfunction. Her unwavering belief in my perceptions during the crisis had literally saved my life, and her continued support during recovery showed me what genuine partnership could be. 6 months after the trial, I proposed to Carmen during a quiet evening at our apartment in Detroit. I had originally planned to propose at the lake house that Memorial Day weekend, but our new beginning deserved a fresh setting, unmarked by trauma and betrayal. Carmen's joyful acceptance marked the beginning of building the healthy family I had always deserved. The brain injury rehabilitation process introduced me to art therapy as a tool for processing trauma and reconnecting with suppressed creativity. Working with art therapist Jennifer Walsh, I discovered an unexpected talent for digital art and animation that had been dormant since childhood. The combination of my software engineering background and newly awakened artistic abilities created unique opportunities I had never considered. My technical skills in programming combined with artistic expression led to freelance opportunities in game design and animation studios. Creating interactive entertainment felt more fulfilling than corporate software development, and the financial rewards exceeded my previous salary. The brain injury, while devastating in its impact, had inadvertently opened doors to creative expression that traditional education had never encouraged. This career transition represented more than professional change. It symbolized reclaiming parts of myself that systematic abuse had suppressed. The creative work engaged different areas of my brain and provided therapeutic benefits beyond traditional treatment approaches. Robert underwent his own therapy journey to address generational trauma and break cycles of abuse that had affected our family for decades. Through individual counseling with Dr. Patricia Johnson, Robert confronted his own childhood trauma and learned to distinguish between normal sibling interaction and systematic violence. Robert reached out to me 6 months after the trial with genuine accountability and commitment to change. He acknowledged his failure to protect me and accepted responsibility for enabling Jake's abuse through willful ignorance and favoritism. While I appreciated his efforts at reconciliation, I established firm boundaries about our relationship moving forward. I want to rebuild our relationship on honesty and respect rather than obligation and tradition, I explained during one of our supervised meetings. But that requires consistent actions, not just apologies. Linda struggled significantly with accepting responsibility for her role in enabling systematic abuse. She continued minimizing Jake's actions and expressing resentment about the destruction of our family, rather than acknowledging the violence that had already destroyed healthy family relationships years earlier. Her inability to accept accountability led to a period of estrangement that taught me valuable lessons about choosing emotional health over traditional family loyalty. Dr. Stevens helped me understand that protecting myself from ongoing toxicity wasn't abandonment, but necessary self-preservation. Amanda successfully gained full custody of Emma and Grace, creating a safe environment where the twins could process their trauma through play therapy with child psychologist Dr. Maria Rodriguez. The divorce proceedings revealed that Amanda had been experiencing emotional abuse from Jake as well, though she had normalized his behavior until witnessing its escalation toward me. Amanda and the twins maintained a relationship with Carmen, and me, giving Emma and Grace positive role models for healthy adult relationships and conflict resolution. The girls thrived in therapy, learning to express emotions safely, and developing trust in adults who prioritized their protection over family image. Jake's online community dissolved as social media platforms implemented new policies, banning content creators who exploited family members for violent entertainment. The broader investigation led to arrests of several subscribers who had paid for extreme content and platform policy changes that protected vulnerable family members from exploitation. My case influenced legislative discussions about digital-age domestic violence, with several states introducing bills that specifically addressed technology-enabled family abuse. Legal experts cited my case as precedent for prosecuting systematic abuse that used social media platforms as tools for ongoing victimization and financial exploitation. The Family Truth Foundation, which Carmen and I established using restitution money from Jake's conviction, began providing resources for families dealing with sibling abuse and training medical professionals to recognize signs of systematic domestic violence. The foundation's work expanded to include legal advocacy and support services for families affected by social media exploitation. Our foundation partnered with domestic violence organizations to develop educational materials, helping parents distinguish between normal sibling conflict and systematic abuse. The resources addressed how brain injuries from repeated trauma could make victims appear compliant with their own mistreatment, complicating family dynamics and preventing recognition of serious abuse. 2 years after that Memorial Day weekend that changed everything, Carmen and I exchanged vows in an intimate ceremony at Belle Isle Park, overlooking the Detroit River. The guest list included chosen family and friends who had supported us through the crisis, along with Robert, who had completed his trauma therapy program and demonstrated consistent commitment to healthy relationship patterns. Robert's presence at our wedding represented forgiveness, earned through actions rather than demanded through family obligation. Our rebuilt relationship was based on mutual respect and honest communication, rather than the obligation and denial that had characterized our family dynamics for decades. Linda remained estranged by her own choice, unable to accept responsibility for enabling systematic abuse or acknowledge the reality of Jake's violence. Her absence from our wedding was painful, but necessary, representing the difficult truth that biological family relationships must meet basic standards of safety and respect to remain viable. My art career flourished as I created animation projects, highlighting family trauma and healing, reaching audiences who recognized their own experiences in my work. The financial success allowed me to expand the Family Truth Foundation's programs and reach more families dealing with similar abuse patterns. Carmen joined the foundation as co-director, bringing her background in social work and advocacy to complement my lived experience with systematic family violence. Together, we developed innovative programs that address the unique challenges of sibling abuse and technology-enabled exploitation. Jake completed his full 8-year sentence without possibility of early parole, and his online platforms remained permanently banned from all major social media services. The investigation into his subscriber network resulted in prosecutions of multiple individuals who had paid for violent content, establishing legal precedent for holding online audiences accountable for encouraging systematic abuse. Amanda rebuilt her life as a single mother, and Emma and Grace thrived in their new environment, free from exposure to domestic violence. The twins maintained loving relationships with Carmen and me, learning healthy communication and conflict resolution skills that would protect them from repeating generational patterns of abuse. Our foundation's work expanded to include training programs for law enforcement, medical professionals, and social workers to help them recognize systematic family violence, disguised as normal sibling dynamics. The programs addressed how brain injuries from repeated trauma could impair victims' ability to seek help or recognize abuse patterns. Carmen and I welcomed our daughter Isabella, 2.5 years after the trial, marking the beginning of a new generation raised with love, safety, and respect, rather than violence and denial. Isabella would grow up understanding that family relationships must be based on mutual care and protection, not hierarchy and dominance. Holding my daughter for the first time, I reflected on the journey from victim to survivor, to advocate understanding that my traumatic experiences, while devastating, had equipped me to help other families recognize and address systematic abuse before it caused permanent damage. The neurological damage from years of abuse remained permanent, but comprehensive treatment and career changes had allowed me to build a fulfilling life that worked with, rather than against, my injury-related limitations. My struggles with memory and concentration became manageable through adaptive strategies and supportive relationships. Our foundation's research contributed to broader understanding of how systematic family violence affects brain development and long-term health outcomes. The work helped families and professionals recognize that seemingly minor incidents of sibling aggression could represent serious patterns of abuse requiring intervention. Robert's transformation through therapy demonstrated that generational cycles of abuse could be broken when family members accepted accountability and committed to genuine change. His relationship with Isabella was built on protection and nurturing rather than the dominance and control that had characterized his parenting approach with Jake and me. The legal precedent established by Jake's prosecution influenced similar cases, nationwide, giving prosecutors tools to address technology-enabled family violence and hold perpetrators accountable for systematic abuse disguised as entertainment content. Social media platforms implemented policies protecting vulnerable family members from exploitation. Carmen's unwavering support throughout the crisis and recovery taught me that healthy relationships provide safety and validation rather than doubt and criticism. Her belief in my perceptions when my own family dismissed my pain had literally saved my life and shown me what genuine love looked like. The Foundation's educational programs helped thousands of families recognize warning signs of sibling abuse and understand that protecting children sometimes requires confronting uncomfortable truths about family dynamics. Parents learn to distinguish between normal conflict and systematic violence that required immediate intervention. My story became part of training materials used by medical professionals to identify patterns of systematic abuse in patients presenting with traumatic brain injuries. The case helped healthcare providers understand how family violence could masquerade as accidental injuries and clumsy behavior. 3 years after the trial, I had built a life centered on healing creativity and helping other families avoid the trauma that had defined my early adulthood. The work was deeply meaningful because it transformed my painful experiences into tools for protecting other vulnerable family members from systematic abuse. Isabella's laughter filled our home with joy that reminded me daily why breaking cycles of abuse was worth every difficult moment of confronting family dysfunction and rebuilding relationships based on respect rather than tradition. She would grow up knowing that love means protection, not domination. The Family Truth Foundation's work continued expanding as more families recognized systematic abuse patterns in their own relationships and sought resources for creating healthier dynamics. Carmen and I remained committed to ensuring that no other families would suffer what we had endured through ignorance and denial. Looking back, I understood that true family isn't defined by blood relations, but by love, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Breaking cycles of abuse requires tremendous courage to confront uncomfortable truths and choose healthy relationships over familiar dysfunction, but the peace and safety that result make every difficult decision worthwhile. The brain injury that had stolen so much of my cognitive function had also led me to discover artistic talents and deeper empathy that enriched my life in unexpected ways. Trauma had become a source of strength and purpose when channeled toward helping others heal and recognizing their own worth. Carmen and I built our marriage on the foundation of mutual respect and honest communication, creating the loving partnership I had never seen modeled in my family of origin. Our relationship proved that healthy love provides safety, validation, and support through life's challenges rather than additional sources of doubt and pain. Our daughter would grow up understanding that family loyalty means protecting each other from harm, not enabling destructive behavior out of misplaced obligation. She would learn that speaking truth about abuse is an act of love, not betrayal, and that choosing safety over tradition requires courage but preserves dignity. The work we do through our foundation continues touching lives and preventing other families from experiencing the systematic abuse that nearly destroyed my health and relationships. Every family we help represents hope that future generations will understand the difference between love and control. Have you ever experienced situations where family members dismissed genuine concerns as overreacting or attention-seeking? Sometimes the people closest to us can be the hardest to see clearly, especially when long-standing patterns make unhealthy behavior seem normal. Share your thoughts in the comments below about how families can better support each other and recognize when someone needs help rather than criticism. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find resources for addressing family dysfunction and recognizing systematic abuse. Subscribe for more stories about healing recovery and building healthier relationships after trauma. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding that family love should mean protection and support, not dismissal and harm. Thank you for listening to my journey from victimization through justice to healing. and purpose. May you find the courage to choose relationships that honor your worth and protect your well-being, even when that means challenging tradition or confronting uncomfortable truths about the people you love. Remember that you deserve safety, respect, and genuine care in all your relationships, especially from family members who claim to love you.